we're going to be into our second session, and it has to do a little bit more with navigating through the documents, which is a key feature, an essential skill set that you need to make sure you have when you work with a relativity. And there are a couple little quirks in the navigating features that I do want to go over with you today. And then we're also going to deal with checking in and out documents, pretty important feature of the program that has to do with both a first level review and a second level review of the documents that are in the particular case. I've also provided to you a couple of links to videos that Relativity provides on these topics, navigating through documents and checking documents in and out. They're pretty short videos. They don't get into a lot of detail, but they can be helpful in addition to what I'm going to present to you in this session. So I do want you to feel free to go to those after our session and see what possibly they've covered in the same way I did, but maybe with a little different angle. So you get to take a look at those. And then the two PowerPoints that I'll be using today are down here, so you can download these afterwards as well. And then, as Alan said, if you do request a video of this whole session, he will send it to you. And if you happen to miss a session, then that also can be done for you as well. So anyway, I've got these PowerPoints ready to go down here. I'm going to click on this one here first, navigating case documents. So let me go ahead and make sure I've got everything set up for a slideshow. Yes, okay. Looks like everything should be go. And we'll go ahead from this first slide. So what we're going to be doing is looking at a couple of things regarding filtering and scope, as well as using tags when you're going through the documents, and how to use the replication of the previous cases, previous documents coding, without having to redo it all if it's exactly the same, things of that kind. So that's where we're headed. So first we need to open a workspace. In this case, the workspace is called Salt versus Pepper. This is the case that Relativity provides to us as a sample case. And we're going to then open that workspace up by clicking on it. Now again, if you are a reviewer, the case manager of Relativity will have assigned you different workspaces. A workspace particularly is usually relating a certain matter. So in this case, Salt versus Pepper, but here this person who's logged in, you can see his login ID up here in the upper right corner. Hi, Peter. That particular user has only been assigned these two workspaces. But if Peter had been assigned more than these, then he'd have a list, possibly a whole list of these down the column here. It tells you the matter numbers. Both of these are the same matter. And the person who last modified the particular case workspace. So we're going to go ahead and click on Salt versus Pepper. And once again, just a little review. We have the browser and search panels over here. So this is the browser panel where you can use, we're in folder view to browse. And then down here is the search panel where the conditions for searching through the particular set of documents would be revealed down in this area. So we're right now in the folder view. Search panel is what we're looking at. The root folder is where we're at right now, and it's really important to think about the folder view as kind of like File Explorer, the program that lets you explore your files on your Windows computer. It's like it, but it's unlike it in another way. And that is, let us say that you're in File Explorer and you have a folder, and you click on it and you see subfolders. but you don't see any documents because there are no documents in the root folder, the top one. And you have to click on a subfolder to see the documents in that subfolder. Well, in relativity, that's not the case. If you click on the root folder, you will see all the documents that are in all the subfolders that are listed under salt versus pepper. So over here, you can see we are looking at 4,871 documents in this workspace, the first 25 of the documents. And that's because we are at the root level, and it's showing all the folders for all the custodians and all the report folders that are below it. Again, that's not like File Explorer. So I'm going to click on and talk a little bit about the 4 ways to browse through your documents. The folder view is what we're going to explore first and take a little closer look at the folder view. And then there's also the field tree. So folder view, we did a little bit of that last time. We're going to get into it a little bit more depth. And then field tree is a way to, instead of looking at the documents that are assigned to particular folders in the case, field view helps us look at documents that are tagged in a certain way. For example, there may be a field in the database, the relativity has set up with your case manager, that says documents with images. That's a field. And the documents with images are going to be available to browse through as a selected group of documents because you're using the field tree view, not the folder view. And then there's another view that you can have of the documents in the case called saved searches. So for example, if you use a keyword like maybe maps, M-A-P-S, because you're looking for all the documents in the whole case, workspace, that has the word maps in it, refers to maps of some kind. And then you save that search because keyword searching especially sometimes takes a while. Even in relativity, it might take a few minutes to bring up all the documents with a particular keyword combination in it. And so once you have that list grouped together by the keywords, you can save that search in your personal settings. And then when you want to do that keyword search again, you don't have to. You can just go to Save Searches and bingo, it'll be there for you. So that's one reason why you'd save your searches. And then clusters. Clusters are particular groups of documents that show up as like a map, and we'll get into those a little bit more. I had a question about that last time, and I've got a special link in Q&A, and we'll come to the cluster viewing of the way you can browse through your documents after these PowerPoints that we're doing. This folder again, method of browsing through your documents. Oh, I just want to say something. I'm in a different environment today presenting. I just heard a cart go by in the hallway. I'm in a hospital in one of the conference rooms, and you might hear some background sound, so sorry about that. I pretty much got that blocked out, but if you do hear something after the session, if you think it was too rambunctious in the background, let Alan know about it, and we'll pick a different conference room. I think we'll be okay. Well, anyway, this is the folder method of browsing through your documents. And when you view the documents using folder view, you can click on any folder that has a plus sign, and you can open the subfolders to see the documents that are just in that subfolder structure. So I'm going to click there. And now what's happened, I have gone ahead and I've clicked on the Sally Beck, or Beck Sally, they've got the names alphabetized by last name, first name, Sally Beck folder. I click there, and then it shows me that the Sally Beck folder has 2 subfolders under it. If I click on the root folder of Sally Beck, I see all the files that are in the deleted items and in the inbox item of Sally Beck. And that's what will be showing up over here on the right. If I just wanted to see the deleted items that she deleted out of her regular inbox, but she didn't empty the trash. I could click on this folder and I would just see over here then all the items that Sally Beck had decided to delete. And then if I want to see just those that are in the inbox, not those in the deleted box, I would click on this folder and it would show me that's because these have been tagged in this particular way for this case. Now we're going to move away from the folder navigation view to another way of viewing the documents, as I had mentioned in the bullet list earlier, the field tree browser view. This lets you see how they are tagged. So this little icon up here looks like some kind of a price tag that you'd stick on something, or a tag that categorizes something in some way. And so that's what it's supposed to remind you of. And when you click on this icon, instead of the folder view, which is over here on the left, you click on it, it will bring up a different listing of options for viewing the documents in your workspace. For example, now over here, once we did, notice we're still at the root level of the tagging view. The root level still shows us 4,871 files. But now we can filter the information that we have in this case, the documents in this case. So let's say that we're looking for a particular photograph. And we're looking for a photograph that may have been attached in an email, it may not have been, but we don't know what kind of document has this, contains this particular photograph that we're looking for. And so, but we do want to look at just all the documents that have images in them or that are images themselves. So we click on this particular tag. And now we have opened up that particular tag, and it tells us there's some sub tags. One that says yes, that we want to look at all the images that definitely have photographs or images in them. It could be the image is not a photograph. It could be a chart or a graph, an illustration, a map, whatever. But it would be some kind of an image file that is associated with that particular document. It could be an email with attachments that are images. So that's what we would click to just see all the documents that definitely have images. If, however, we've looked at all the images and we don't want to look at documents with images anymore, we could click no. And then we'd see all the images in our case that have not been tagged as having images. And then if there are documents that haven't been tagged at all for having images or no images, then we could click here that these documents may have images in them, they may not, but they haven't been tagged one way or the other. And then the error tag has to deal with someone or relativity itself that has tagged this particular file that has images, but there's something wrong with the image. It's corrupted in some way, or there's some kind of an error message associated with this particular document that contains an image. And then if there's no tag at all on that particular document, whether it has, there's no tagging in any way particular to related to images, then we could look at all those documents here. We're going to click on yes to see the documents in this particular workspace that have images. And now we are looking at a listing of the documents that have images. And if we look at the setup here, you'll notice that we only have 20 documents out of the 4,000 some documents that have actual images that are embedded in them or that are connected to them in some way. And if we look at the type of documents we have, like here's one, an email from Andy Zipper, to Andy Zipper from David Forster, we know that this email now has an image associated with it. Most likely it's an image that has been attached. And if the photograph we're looking for actually is, we know from David Forster, then and we see that it was sent to Andy Zipper, who may in the future deny that he ever seen it, then this would be a good place to click on that particular control number so that we can see what images might be attached to that particular email. I'm going to go ahead and take a look down further in this list. And down here you can see there is a control number, the custodian zipper again, but this time it's not an email message at all. It shows that it's not an email to or from. Instead, it's got xls.data. That's the file name. And so it's possible this is a spreadsheet piece of information that has a chart or a graph or something in it that wouldn't necessarily be a photograph. So you can see by the file name sometimes what type of image might be embedded in this particular document. So now we're going to go ahead and take a brief look at what these icons are for in our navigation panel. This is a saved searches icon, and we can save searches and then go back to those searches, like I mentioned, with keywords. And if you click there, then you'd see a listing of all your saved searches, the searches that you have saved and in your workspace. And then you could just reuse those keyword searches if you wanted to. And then this is the cluster icon that will give you a chance to take a look at the documents that have been clustered. And we'll hopefully get to that with that Q&A area in a little bit. And then we'll be covering these in a different tutorial as well. But those are two other ways of grouping together the documents when you're navigating through your documents. Now, another thing, when you're navigating through your documents that you might want to do is adjust the screen space. For example, right now, look at this area over here in the left, salt versus pepper area. You can see that it's kind of cut off here a little bit, but you can't see all the columns above the documents. And so you might want to adjust the browser area over here by holding your mouse button down on this vertical line. You can see the double-headed arrow here on the left, and hold your left and drag that over to the left. And then this is a consequence. You can see this area is narrower, and it's opened up the column areas above the document listing that you have. So that's a way of adjusting, one way of adjusting your screen space when you're navigating through documents. And then another way of doing it is to click on this icon that you'll see at the top over the browser area. Clicking on this twice will hide this whole browser panel, and then it gives you the full screen width to view your documents, which is something I often would do in Relativity. So I would click there, and then you'll notice that we have the full screen. We can see all of our columns, and the browser area and the filter area is gone. We don't see that anymore. But now let's say that you want to go back to that particular browser view. You want the panels back over there. Then this little icon here appears instead of that other one that you saw, and you can click that, and it will come back to bring the browser panel back into view. Now on this screen, what we're seeing is that you can move the whole browser panel itself by clicking in this blank area over here on the left, not on the folder, but just to the left of it. If you click and hold your left mouse button down, you can actually drag this whole panel. You can see down in the screen here that I've drug it over. You got a four-headed arrow there that'll appear when you hold your left mouse button down. You can drag and drag and drag it and drop it all the way to the right. So in this view on the far right, you can see the browser panel is way over here now on the right-hand side of the screen, and my document list is over here. Now, when software is designed by the programmers, it is tested to see which interface is most popular with those who take a look at it. And in Relativity's case, the most popular way of having your browser window is to have it over on the left-hand side of the screen. But there were a significant number of people that use Relativity that said, no, I kind of like to have the browser panel over on the right. And so this was provided by Relativity. You can just hold down your left mouse button and drag that whole panel over on the right, and then your whole viewer interface is changed and oriented in this way. Now, how to navigate through our documents. So we're going to go back to the folders icon and make sure that the root folder is clicked on, so you're viewing all the documents. We click there. And here's where you can make sure that you're seeing all your documents. Look up in this area of your screen, and you can see that we have the 4,871. We're only looking at the 25, and I mentioned last session that instead of just 25 documents listed here, if you have a vertical screen, your monitor is turned, sort of on end, you might say, in the portrait mode. Then you can change in your settings. You click where it says, "Hi, Peter," that would be your name up there. You click there, and then you can change this number to be 30, 40, 50, however many you want in the listing down below in this area here, if you want to change that setting. And then also up in the right-hand corner, you see these icons like your VCR controls. This one clicks through and goes to the very next document in your list. This one goes backwards. This goes to the very first document of the 4,871, and then this one goes to the very last document, the 4,871st document in the listing that you have. Now, to actually go ahead and take a look at a document in reviewer mode, you're going to go ahead and click on the control number. And this would be your control number here. And you click that, and then this is then the actual viewing of the document itself that was in that list. And you can see over here, this was an email. You can tell by the little icon up there. This was an email that was sent to, notice undisclosed recipient is mentioned up here. And you might wonder, well, why is that the case? Well, in some of the discovery situations, some of that may have been changed, or maybe the other side or your side doesn't want this revealed for some reason. Maybe you have permission, I don't know. But an undisclosed is unusual. And then you notice the subject and the attachments. This is important up here. We see that there are actually 3 attachments in this email that we might want to take a look at as well. And so keep your eye on attachments that you might need to review as well with this particular document. And the time and date stamps have been apparently used as names, but they could be other and more significant names for those spreadsheets as well. Now over here on the right, we see that we have the document is descriptions of different areas, like the control number that we know about, the group identifier, so that we know that this particular document is grouped together by relativity with other documents, and that could be handy when you want to be taking a look at a cluster of documents that have been grouped together. And then the file name itself is given to you here. And then we also have down here the email from. And down here we see that the email from is not being hidden in this area. The metadata reveals it to us. And then the email to, the undisclosed, is there. And then the email subject is put in the metadata and the date that it was sent. So, and if there's other information that is in the metadata, it will show up over in this area. And you can pick edit to change this if that is something that you're supposed to be doing. To move to the next document in the list, you just click on that single arrow, and it will move on to the next document. And when you do, instead of it going to the whole list of documents, it will actually bring the document, since you were actually looking at the actual document itself, not just its name. It will bring up the document in the viewer panel, and you'll see the actual document. So now we see the Excel spreadsheet. that is there, and we see the information about that Excel spreadsheet, the file name, and that information that is related to it. Now, when you're looking at a spreadsheet in the viewer mode, you do have the option, the plus sign here, to zoom in. It's 100% now. If you need to zoom in and see more detail, you can use this particular option. This will allow you to see the document full screen if you want to go there. And we'll get into printing a little bit later, but in another session. But here is your printing option. So if you want to print it to a PDF file or to a printer, these icons here will be available. We'll explore these as well as we go along with regard to the document view options. So now we're going to go ahead to go back to the whole listing of documents, not just looking at the content of the document, but that list. You click on Return to the Document List, and it brings it back to this screen. Next, what we want to do is take a look at the customized views that may be available to you by clicking here. So now your case administrator and your project manager, they may have created special customized views that you can use to filter through your documents. So let's take a look at what is available to Mr. Peter here. And so here is a listing now that we've clicked on documents of the various customized views. Documents, all metadata, conversation threads. So this would allow you to see the conversations, particularly in email, that have gone back and forth between individuals, and the documents will be listed according to the conversation that took place. And then my checked out batch items not reviewed. So if you your case administrator's got some documents that you've checked out and they haven't been reviewed, you could click here. My checked out batch, if you've got a batch of documents that are checked out. Unassigned and not reviewed documents would be a click here. But what we're going to be looking at down here are the responsive documents. So the case manager is determined that these documents are filtered by being responsive, and you're supposed to just review those. So you'd come here and click on responsive documents. So now what's being listed are just 56 documents, you can see up here, that have been marked as being of relevance to the particular case. And they've been recorded as responsive. I'm sorry, not relative, but responsive in this situation. And there's just 56 of them in the listing. And you can take a look at the responsive designation that verifies that that's what you're looking at. And you can see the email subjects, you can see the email from and the email to, so that, and anybody that's been carbon copied, that could be of significance to you in your review work as well. And you can see the document types in this column here, whether it be a Word document, PDF file, Excel spreadsheet, and so on. Here we filter even further by choosing a responsive, okay, but also a subfolder, Louise Kitchen. So we have the, we're in this workspace called responsive documents, but now what we want to do is filter further, because we just want to look at the responsive documents that have as custodian Louise Kitchen. So we click here, and now you'll notice there are only 31 documents in our list that we have to take a look at. So this is a way of creating what is called the scope of your documents. A scope is a narrower range of documents within a particular batch of documents. Now, changing the scope of the filter for relevant documents is what we've done. And if you choose only this folder, then only a folder you have highlighted will be looked into for relevance. This folder and the subfolders, only this folder. So that's the way we set up our scope, only look in this particular folder. You have drop downs up here. You can see them here. And you can select an option for returning documents related to hit documents. Hit documents match the search criteria. The related documents are included in the results set, but they do not need to match the search criteria. So you can select no related items if you do not wish to include any of these documents. Duplicates. You can use this setting if you want the result set to include documents with the same MD5 hash values as the hit documents. Now, what are MD5 documents? MD5 hash value is used as a unique file identifier. MD5 number, which is a sort of a hexadecimal number with letters and numbers in its category. These are unique. No other document that will have this hash number unless the document is exactly the same in every respect as another document. And so if you choose this, duplicates, this setting, if you want a result, is to include documents with the same MD5. Because normally what happens when you're looking at a list of documents, relativity will not show you documents that are exact duplicates. It figures you don't want to review the same document a second time. Well, you might want to. For example, let's say a document has the same hash number. The content is exactly the same, but the name of the document might be different. So then, even though it's got the exact same content, the name might be different, and that could be relevant in some respect to your work on the case. Family. Use this setting if you want the result set to include documents with the same group identifiers as the hit documents. And then custom field, your organization may use what are called custom related fields. You'd have to contact your system administrator for additional information if you're going to be using that particular custom field. Okay, so that concludes the navigating case document with filters and scope PowerPoint that you have available to you. Now I want to go to another PowerPoint that you have available. Make sure we have this slideshow set up right. Everything is good. And go ahead and present this to you.
In relativity, one of the most important procedures a reviewer is given is to go through checking out batches of documents and coding them.
Okay, previously what I had done is I had recorded my audio into this PowerPoint for you, but there are some things that I have thought of since I did that that I want to maybe work with. So I'm not going to play the narration this time. I'm going to actually give you additional narration as we go through the slideshow. But if you download the slideshow, you'll have my previous narration in it. So this particular PowerPoint has to do with checking in and out documents. This is a key feature of relativity that allows you to work on a set of documents without anyone actually working on them at the same time, a pretty important feature of the program. So you need to make sure that you do have this set up in relativity to check in and out documents. So in this tutorial, we'll cover how to work with the document, what are called batches. And we also have another link in the Q&A session that has to do with batches. And we have in our last session together, the batches are set up really by the case manager. But I did want to show you how the case manager goes about that. So I've added another tutorial link to the last session about how these batches are set up and why. Now, documents are put into batches, obviously to help distribute the review workload, and they can either be assigned to a reviewer or they can be checked out for review. So you can have documents that only certain reviewers can work on, and they're assigned to that particular person. And then if the administrator of the case has set up documents that could be checked out by any particular person, they'll be listed separately without someone's name attached to them. Now you might ask, why would the administrator of a case assign particular documents to a particular reviewer? Well, for example, you might be part-time, and so you're not going to get assigned a bunch of documents in one particular batch. There'll be a smaller batch assigned to you. Or some reviewers are more expert at using some of the software programs that have produced the document. So let's say a reviewer knows nothing about Excel, which would be unusual, but let's just pretend for a moment that's the case. Well, then the batch of documents assigned to that particular reviewer is probably not going to contain any Excel spreadsheets for review, and because formulas could be important, that kind of thing. Or another reviewer might be an expert photographer and knows all kinds of things about the kind of metadata that is embedded in images and so on. So maybe documents with images are going to be assigned in a batch to that particular reviewer. If you end up being a case manager and you're creating batches, it's important to get to know the reviewers that are working on your particular case, so you know what their areas of strength are and weakness, and so you can create the batches of documents for their review, keeping these things in mind, which can make the whole review process much more accurate, with a lot more time saving involved as well for the review. So let's say, for example, we have a case with 2,500 documents, and that we have 5 different reviewers on this particular project. So batches will ensure that documents are reviewed by only one person at a time. And if you have the option of checking out batches, and in most cases of relativity where it's installed, you're going to have a batch tab like you see up here. So if you log in, and the reviewer in this case is called reviewer, no, not Peter, but reviewer. If you log in, once you log in, you'll see a tab here, batches, and that would be the first place normally you would go when you log into relativity. And then the batches tab displays these available batches and informs us of the status of the batches, as well as the information on the size of the batches. So let's take a look at the screen for a moment. We have a couple batches that have been completed, and they were assigned to this particular user, and the batch unit, the custodian was Andrew Zipper. And so these, of course, don't need any work. You're not going to click edit on those to get in there and change that. Now, if you were a case manager, and you notice that it was marked complete, but you took a look at the batch and you see there's some documents that have not really been adequately reviewed, you could come in and change that batch status. So even though you log in one time and you see a batch SP0002 that was indicated completed, you might log back in again and see that that batch has got your name on it, even though you thought you had completed it, which means you've got to go back to it and take care of it. Oftentimes then you'll get an email from the case manager indicating that you still need some work on that particular batch of files. So this can be changed in terms of the status by the case manager. And then, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at a particular batch. We're going to check out a batch that we have to edit by clicking on the word edit next to the batch. And this is where we would do it. Now we're going ahead and doing that even though we haven't been assigned this batch. Notice there's no one assigned to it, but we've got some time, and this particular batch set, the lemon pepper batch set that we're going to work on, we notice it's got John Griffith. And we've previously worked with some John Griffith documents, and we feel, you know, like, oh, that would be, I feel more comfortable working on those than with Louise Kitchen batch. So I'm gonna pick this batch, and if you're not told which batch to pick, then you know you use your experience with the case to determine which batch of documents you might want to work at. So we click Edit, and then this pop-out screen comes up for us, and by clicking on the dialog box to check it out, we can then go ahead and check out this particular batch. And once we do, you notice down here below that it tells us that the batch status is in progress. So anybody else then that logs in to Relativity and takes a look at this and says, oh, I wanted to work on that. Well, they can't. It's in progress. You have checked it out. And so they're going to have to wait if they want to take this batch in tow the next time when you get out of it, unless you mark it complete. And if it isn't marked complete, it'll be marked pending. So we'll go on to the next screen. Now, when you want to, if you're in batch mode and you want to go back and see all the documents, not just the batches, once again, you're going to click on the Document tab up above, and that will show you the documents for which you're responsible. Your case manager may create a view to show you specific groups, and this is available at the drop-down box up above. So when you click on Documents, you might see that you have been assigned a particular batches of documents that have been grouped together, as you can see in this particular list here. To select My Checked Out Batch, which is here, if you have a checked out batch of documents, you click on this particular listing. And you can then click on any document to open it up, like we did in the other particular navigating of our documents, this Griffith document. So you can just click on that and open it up. And after you've opened a document, you can, to begin coding the document, you can click on the Edit button. That would bring up your coding panel. And you can code your document with the appropriate designation, and then you can click Save. So let's take a look at this document for a little bit. We have the option of doing clicking responsive, non-responsive. Now, what does this mean? Of course, your training indicates that a responsive document is one that is in keeping with the requested document set from your client. Let's say it's between this date and that date. It's from Andy Zipper. It's to John Griffith. And you can see up here in the from and to that that's true. And so that's going to be responsive. Now, if it was from somebody else totally and not to John Griffith, to other persons, and it's in the collection of documents, and the other side has not requested this particular document, from and to and so on, that's not in the early conference that you've had with them, that's not what they're asking for, then you're going to click non-responsive. But you have to kind of look at the document itself, because there are other categories. For example, even though they haven't requested email from and to, it could be the subject line is relevant to what's, maybe they've said, we want all the documents between this date and that date, no matter who they're from and to, that have to do with the Intercontinental Exchange. So you see that and you say, oh yeah, that is responsive. So then you would click on your responsive icon. You can also copy from the previous document to help speed up the reviewing process. So over here, like say this particular document was considered to be responsive, and then you go to the next document and you want to copy the previous document's coding to this one, you could click copy from previous. To see only the documents that you haven't reviewed, you can return to the drop-down menu and select My Unreviewed Documents here. So not My Checked Out Batch, but My Unreviewed Documents. Documents that have been assigned to you that you have not reviewed. And then check a batch. To check a batch in, after you've reviewed them, you click again on the Edit button and select from the dialog box and click Check In as Pending. So if you have a bunch of documents you've been looking at, you haven't completed reviewing them and marking them, then you can click on Check In as Pending. So this will let the case manager know that you have not completed the batch and will also allow the batch to be worked on possibly by other reviewers. Okay, so that completes that particular PowerPoint, and we do have a little bit of time, so good. I wanted to come down to the cluster click. We had a question about clusters, and so I'm going to come here and go ahead and take a look at the cluster visualization view of the documents. Cluster visualization renders your cluster data as kind of like an interactive map, allowing you to see a quick overview of your cluster sets, and you can quickly drill into each cluster set to view subclusters and somehow conceptually related clusters as well. This can assist you with the following actions, and this is the important part, I think, of the use of clustering. Open prioritizing review. You can use filters and metadata information to identify, tag, and batch documents that are likely to be relevant. So the case manager oftentimes will use this cluster visualization to assign batches of documents to various reviewers. And then in a scenario, your case team is working on a matter when you receive a large number of documents from some new custodian. So if you're managing this case, a deadline is looming and you need to get these documents reviewed as quickly as possible. So what you can do with cluster visualization is you can apply filters for key terms in cluster visualization to create a heat map that will identify the most important documents using some of Relativity's built-in artificial intelligence. You can select the darker clusters first and then mass edit those documents to set them as a high review priority. You can create an auto batching set that uses the high review priority field to automatically batch documents out after they are tagged with a high review priority to get the important documents to reviewers as quickly as possible. You can explore the nearby cluster view of your documents to see which documents are conceptually similar to the darker clusters and mass edit those clusters to set the high review priority field and add them to the auto batching set to get them to other reviewers as quickly as possible. Use the cluster search panel to filter out the documents that do not have the review priority field set to only see the document clusters that have not been batched out for review. You can also open exploring your data, perform an early assessment to learn about documents in your case and discover useful terms. And there's a scenario, your team has recently taken on a new matter. Documents have been collected from key custodians, but they have not yet been interviewed. You have read the complaint and have an idea what the case is about, but review has not yet begun, and you're not sure what all is in your data set. So the clustering the visualization can help all of that. There's more of this down below too as to how you can use those clusterings if you're a case manager. And then this is a click that takes you to the Relativity site that gives you a really good in-depth explanation of cluster visualization. And I wanted to come down on this particular site to show you an example of this. They've got one here for us to look at. And here's what is a cluster view of the documents that has been set up by the artificial intelligence in Relativity. And so here what we can see are the legend as to what documents might be most important in your cluster. You have a number of documents here, gas permit meeting, EPA. So these documents all have something in the metadata, something in the key fields of data that have been put into Relativity, and these documents might be of higher priority for a particular review. And so you can see over here the legend that the darker documents maybe are the hotter documents in your case, and then you would click on those and then take a look at those documents and then be able to possibly assign them in your viewing. The lighter clusters, the shading indicates that only a very small percentage of documents in the cluster have been coded as responsive. The documents in these lighter shaded clusters would warrant further investigation to determine why only a small portion of conceptually similar documents were coded as responsive. So this cluster view uses a lot of AI to help you decide what to do as a case manager in terms of doing quality control of the coding that's been done. You can continue your QC review by right-clicking a darker shaded cluster, one with a high percentage of responsive documents, and selecting View Nearby Clusters from the right-click menu. So you can review those that may be relevant. The nearby clusters visualization places the selected cluster in the middle of the screen and shows you as a manager your other clusters that are conceptually similar to it, and a closer a cluster is to the center, the more conceptually similar it is. So you can see this kind of mapping of your documents using the clusters. So I didn't want to get too much. I've got a lot here for you to look at. Those of you who are going to be managing cases should come back to this and look this over. And if you have any further questions after you do so, go ahead and give me an email, and I can talk to you in email or put some more Q&As in there for you. But I did put this in here, and there's a video from Relativity regarding cluster visualization that I encourage you who are going to be managers of the cases to take a look at. It gives you a lot of good detail about how to go about using your cluster visualizations when you're setting up your batches for the reviewers. But basically, our course is the essentials, and so many people that are watching this are not going to be the ones who do the cluster visualizations, and you make use of those, and so I didn't want to get too much in depth in this hour with regard to that particular feature. So anyway, these are the two PowerPoints I've used, and you're able to take a look at these videos that are that my PowerPoints are based upon. I put a little more commentary into these than these short little videos from Relativity has, but they're helpful, and I would encourage you to watch those as kind of in quotes homework this week.